The U.S. Biden administration announced plans to increase two-way trade and investment between the U.S. and Africa last year, 2021. The starting point was a reimagining of Trump's Prosper Africa initiative. What kind of trade agreement is the United States proposing? The Biden-Harris administration launched the Prosper Africa Build Together campaign in July 2021. The goal was to re-energize and elevate the United States' commitment to trade and investment with African countries. The new Trump strategy includes a long-term, targeted effort to connect American and African businesses with new trade and investment opportunities. Clean energy and climate-smart solutions, health, and digital technology are key sectors being targeted. The U.S. promises to help drive billions of dollars of investment to Africa through the initiative, as well as to work toward equitable access to the benefits of trade and investment. It also intends to capitalize on the power of small businesses, particularly those led by women and members of the African diaspora. With all of these promises, what should a good trade agreement look like? Given the numerous possible configurations of a potential trade agreement, this is a difficult question to answer. Nonetheless, let's take a look at two key components of such a trade agreement. First, unlike the current U.S.-Africa trade agreement, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, which is a unilateral U.S. government policy, it should be truly multilateral. A truly multilateral agreement would treat African leaders as equal partners, allowing them to participate fully in U.S.-Africa trade negotiations. Anything less than this would be detrimental to one or both parties. A bad trade agreement, for example, could exacerbate the U.S. trade deficit, whereas for Africa, it would be a missed opportunity for much-needed structural economic transformation. Furthermore, it would force African countries to compete with the much stronger U.S. economy, to the detriment of their domestic businesses and industries. Second, whatever agreement is reached must increase African countries' capacity to trade with the U.S. While a free trade agreement between the United States and Africa would be ideal, it is unlikely to benefit many African countries. Countries with weak technological and economic foundations would be easily overwhelmed by the powerful U.S. export machine. As an alternative to a free trade agreement, a beneficial pact for Africa should be designed to increase trade and investment between the U.S. and Africa while gradually increasing African countries' capacity to compete globally in the production of non-traditional high-value products. Although the exact details of the Prosper Africa Build Together campaign are yet to be worked out, it remains to be seen whether it will be able to deliver on its promise. Unlike AGOA, it has a long-term and holistic perspective. And, in order to counter the influence of Europe, Russia, and China, the United States is likely to be more motivated to engage Africa on both an economic and a geopolitical level. Africa can only obtain favorable trade agreements if it negotiates for them. African countries must therefore invest in trade negotiators' capacity building and training, as well as hiring, retaining, and empowering the right people for these roles. The African Growth and Opportunity Act is the current U.S.-Africa trade agreement. It was passed in 2000 and is set to expire in 2025 unless extended by the U.S. Congress. Since 2000, the law has been at the heart of U.S. economic policy and commercial engagement with Africa. It grants duty-free access to the U.S. market for over 1,800 products to eligible sub-Saharan African countries. This is in addition to the over 5,000 other products eligible for duty-free access under the Generalized System of Preferences. AGOA benefits are currently available to 36 African countries. The question then becomes whether the current trade agreement, AGOA, has served its purpose. Yes, to some extent. The legal framework has aided in providing sub-Saharan African beneficiary countries with liberal access to the U.S. market. Furthermore, it has strengthened trade and investment ties between the United States and sub-Saharan Africa. It has also generated over 300,000 jobs in the region, primarily in the apparel industry. Non-oil U.S. imports under the agreement, a major source of its job-creating value, were approximately $4.8 billion as of 2021. However, AGOA has not benefited all sub-Saharan African countries, and their manufacturing sectors remain underdeveloped. The majority of African exports under AGOA remain dominated by apparel products. Furthermore, many of the AGOA beneficiaries are foreign corporations that use Africa as a front to gain access to the U.S. market. President Trump and his Kenyan counterpart, Uhuru Kenyatta, announced the start of negotiations for a post-AGOA agreement in 2020. The deal, according to Trump's administration, will serve as a model for other African countries. The pact was designed with Trump's preference for bilateral trade deals in mind, and it was expected to be completed within 10 months. But it didn't work. Otherwise, it would have provided the United States with a replicable model for future trade agreements with Africa. In the end, the negotiations were thwarted by Trump's term expiration. This would have been the first bilateral agreement between the United States and a country in sub-Saharan Africa. Morocco is currently the only African country with a free trade agreement with the United States. It was signed in 2004 as the Morocco Free Trade Agreement. In the case of Kenya, such a deal would have elevated the country's preferential access to the American market under AGOA to a reciprocal agreement similar to those the U.S. has with 20 other countries around the world, including Morocco. In conclusion, trade relations between the United States and Africa are on a dynamic continuum that includes Bill Clinton's AGOA, George Bush's African Global Competitiveness Initiative, Barack Obama's Trade Africa, Donald Trump's Prosper Africa Initiative, and now Joe Biden's Prosper Africa Build Together campaign. These trade initiatives are intertwined with broader U.S. values and interests in Africa. Future trade treaties are thus unlikely to deviate significantly from previous ones, even as the U.S. seeks to counterbalance European, Russian, and Chinese influence in Africa. In such trade engagements, African states should fight for their own interests in the same way. Future U.S.-Africa trade treaties are likely to be shaped by two major pressures. First, should the United States negotiate with individual African countries or with Africa as a whole? Second, should future U.S. trade treaties with Africa be unilateral, as AGOA was, or should African leaders be involved in defining their frameworks? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Thanks for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories.